Welcome to the Griswold Method. I am here right now with a gentleman that I've known for a decade. He and I have walked fire together. We built rebarb in what's called the anglo-louis. It's the soft spot in your neck. We built, what was that? What size was that rebarb?
It was 3/4 inch, 8 feet.
We've done some crazy stuff together. This is Dr.Josh Paxton. Josh has been somebody that we together have been praying together, being together, doing life together, practice together. We don't practice together, but we both are chiropractors and we both run practices.
Raising families together.
Raising family. And like what was so fantastic is to be able to connect with somebody who aligns with your philosophies and aligns with your belief system, that's doing what you're doing. And so that you can really kind of trade punches, if you will, on what's going on in your life and how that you handle it.
100%.
And I thought it was important that, and I'm going to lead into this conversation, but I think it's important that we discuss one of my favorite things Josh ever told me, one of my favorite stories. And if I'm going to pre-frame the story, then I'm going to shut up and let Josh go. But my favorite story is, and we did this experiential mastermind in the northern hills of Georgia.
My hometown, yeah.
In the winter. What was it?
February.
February.
Freezing cold, single digits, yeah, like the teens and the upper single digits.
Cold.
Uber cold, frozen ground.
Terrible cold, actually, now that I remember.
Yeah, miserably.
We did a fire walk, we bent the rebarb, and we also did a sweat lodge.
4 hours and 3 minutes.
And the hottest hellhole that you could ever and I mean there were some really, but what we did is that was the beginning of a relationship that's been going on ever since at a deep level, because in those midst of trials and tribulations, we learned a lot about each other. But the next day, after you go through the things, your brain is open and available to other things. And 100%. I don't know if you remember exactly what that day was, but that was the next day after we did the sweat lodge, and we just kind of detoxed and let things go.
Yeah.
And we talked about how in our lives, there's things that we want to attack. There's things that we don't like about our belief systems and what we believe, or the things that we're not willing, we don't want to let go of.
Sure.
And so Josh is from North Georgia, country boy. You'll catch a little bit of it in his accent. I tried to edit my accent down as much as I can. If you know me from my hometown, they're like, does he even talk like that anymore? I don't talk like that as much. So I'm going to shut up and let you know, this is called the coyote story in my life. And I don't know if it's the coyote story in your life at all. So I'm going to shut up and let Josh tell the coyote story. It's one of my favorite stories, though, about looking at the places in your life that you need to be exposed. Josh Paxton.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We, here's the deal on the coyote story. It's really quite profound. It's called why the coyote. They chose the coyote. It's an ancient Indian Native American ritual, but they chose the coyote simply because of the way the coyote is hunted, right? So if you want to hunt down these, I like to call them ungodly beliefs, or these limiting beliefs, these beliefs that don't align with the fullness of what God has in store for your life. The way you're going to have to hunt those down is identical to the way we down in the sticks, the way we hunt coyotes down in Georgia. And I've been.
Do you hunt them out of your truck, or?
Absolutely. Just driving down the road, right? No, it's coyote hunting is a lot of fun. And there's a couple of parallels with coyote hunting about how you have to approach coyote hunting to be safe and effective that are very similar to how you have to approach these limiting ungodly beliefs in our lives if we're going to be safe and effective. Mm-hmm. So growing up a Georgia boy, coyote hunting is kind of standard run-of-the-mill behavior and activity. And there's a couple of really interesting parallels. I thought about this when you asked me to sit with you and talk about coyotes, and I thought about something that's really profound that I since have learned. I heard someone saying it, took me back to the coyote story a couple, 2 or 3 years ago when I heard this gentleman say it. There's a pastor out in Redding, California by the name of Bill Johnson, and he said this. He said the one time that the Lord prayed, and we have a record of exactly verbatim what he prayed that it be on earth as it is in heaven. He prayed specifically that we would have heaven come to earth, that we would have heaven come to earth, and that earth would match heaven, right? So it's God's very interested, as we are his children, he's very interested in our lives being a mimic of heaven, right? Having this heavenly experience, even while we're here on this earth. So he said, if I'm going to live heaven on earth, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, if I'm going to have heaven on earth, I'm going to experience heaven on earth in this mortal realm. I simply cannot afford to have a single thought in my head about me
Yeah.
that God doesn't have in his head
About you.
about me.
You are his child.
They have to match,
Yeah.
right? If they're contradictory, I'm never going to experience the fullness of
Sure.
heaven on earth, which is what the Christ
Right.
prayed for. So inductively, in terms of logic, I mean, if you're going to consider that I can't afford to have a single thought in my head about me, he doesn't have his head about me. My next question would be, well, I wonder what his thoughts are towards me. What are his thoughts concerning me? And so you have to learn those first. You have to go to God and ask him what those are, and he'll be kind and tell you, I assure you. I know from personal experience. And then step 2 is that we have to go through an inventory of the thoughts in our minds about ourselves that don't line up, the ones that are contradictory. And then we have to go hunt those down like we hunt coyotes. And so there's some cool stuff about hunting coyotes. If you've never done it, it's one of the coolest things ever. And because they become very predatory in my area, so
They're a nuisance, by the way. They're a problem.
They're very predatory. They're very nuisance. They eat a lot of livestock. They eat a lot of personal animals, pet animals,
yep.
and so forth. And now they're getting to the point where they're even visiting in the middle of the day, and they're even being aggressive towards humans. So they're getting really out of hand. They're becoming a significant problem in my geographical area. So to hunting coyotes, here we go. A couple things. Number 1, you never hunt coyotes alone. Rule number 1, never, ever, ever, it's not safe. Never, ever hunt coyotes alone. I would say to you, when you're going to go through these thoughts and you're going to learn to rethink on these thoughts and reprogram these thoughts, I'm going to suggest to you, never hunt those thoughts down alone.
Yeah.
Right? Hunt those thoughts down with a pastor. Hunt those thoughts down with a brother, a friend like you are to me. A spouse, a parent, someone that you know, love, and trust, right? Someone that can help you not get stuck in the middle of these thoughts. So that's parallel number 1. Number 2, which is what you've always said is your favorite thing about the parallels in regards to how we hunt coyotes. Number 2, the way we hunt them is that if let's hypothetically say we were hunting them, what would happen is that I might grab the gun. So I'm going to get a 223 or whatever. I'm going to grab a rifle, and then you're going to be on the spotlight. And this is a cool thing, right? So you would, as a spotlighter, you would blow what we call a wounded rabbit call, right? So it's a whining call of a wounded rabbit. And then, so because again, these coyote thoughts, they love to attack prey, right? They love that opportunistic approach. And so as this happens in our lives, when we're vulnerable, that's when these thoughts come, right? And try to take the life out of us, right?
Can I pause you there for a second?
Go for it.
I wanted you to catch what he said there. How you attract a coyote is the wounded. I mean, they used to sell tapes. I was old enough to be able. They used to sell tapes that you could buy of a bleeding rabbit.
Yeah, and we have a call for it.
He has a call for it. I want you to catch that part of this analogy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you bleat the wounded rabbit call. There's an opportunity for them. They come.
So they hear the opportunity from the weakness of an animal, and then they come.
Yeah, absolutely, and then they come, and they're hungry, they're salivating, they're ready to roll, they're ready to inflict damage, just like the thoughts are. And so if you're blowing the call, I'm sitting with the gun. When you hear them and you see them moving around just off in the distance, they actually get very, very close. What you would do is that you would take a floodlight, a handheld floodlight, and you would illuminate it quickly. There's a trigger on the front of it, the ones we use, and when you trigger that floodlight, it'll illuminate in that coyote's face, and they freeze. So what's interesting, what I think is very interesting, it's kind of a spiritual parallel. When you take the coyote and put it out in the light, when you bring it out of the darkness and put it into light, when you shine light on it, it can now inflict no damage. I mean, sometimes they get so frozen and so overcome by the light. I wouldn't do it, but you could walk up and pet them. I mean, they freeze. They're completely neutralized and harmless, which is a great opportunity to neutralize the animal, this threat, right? Because they're a threat.
Right.
Don't kid yourself.
Sure, they're running in.
We're not talking Lassie here. We're not talking a docile border collie here. These things are ferocious. Like, these things are mean as a snake. They're ferocious. They're very dangerous. So you neutralize the threat by putting light on it. So the parallel is, when you're struggling with these thoughts, right? These coyote thoughts that need to die, call them out into the light. Get an accountability partner. We've called each other literally in the middle of the workday between patients and said, hey, Josh, I'm struggling. Hey, Matt, I'm struggling with this thought. And I go, that's garbage, and here's why, and you know it.
Yep.
And he go, cool, man, thanks, appreciate it, love you, bye, gotta go. And we jump right back to it. Well, we call that out into the light, and it pattern interrupts that negative thought. So you shine the spotlight on that coyote, and then the gunman, your buddy, right, he takes the shot, and you put the coyote down, right? And now you've neutralized this threat, right? This threat to so many things, agriculturally and otherwise. So that's, if a lot of people, I guess, if you're not from the sticks, if you're not an inbred redneck like I am, you don't know how this works, but it's quite interesting to use the coyote and a Native American approach to this, because this is exactly how it works. And there's so many parallels to neutralizing these very threatening, toxic thoughts that are holding you back, that don't agree with what the Lord says about you and who you are. And so they're holding you back. They're inhibiting you from experiencing heaven on earth.
So we're at a conference, and this weekend, the conversation is all around, you're your greatest asset. You're an appreciating asset.
Yeah, an appreciating asset, yeah.
The way that you're an appreciating asset is that you're identifying the coyotes in your life, the negative thoughts, the negative belief systems, and shining a light with a partner that you're accountable to be able to say, these are the things that I'm exposing it to the light, and then I can kill it. That gives me chills to say it, to think about it. Because at that point, like, you know for a fact, I have the power and ability to expose it. And I have the power and ability to be able to do that. And we've been talking, this is a 5-6-year-old story that's been a part of our lives.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked Josh to be here is because that's the stuff that I want you to hear on on my content. I want you to know that I'm talking to people that are just like this, that I want you to hear, because I have the benefit of going to an event and talking to these people about these things. And so this whole thing, the podcast for me is not self-serving whatsoever. It's very much about, there are wise people out there that I want you to hear. And that's one of my favorite stories from Dr.Josh Paxton, who practices in Griswold, Georgia, runs a very large practice and is very successful, has been at the school that I go to. He has been a pillar at the college that I graduated from for years, and to love and to serve. And that's what he's done. But what I wanted to catch out of this story, and I hope you got it, was, where are your thoughts? And where are your exposures?
And where are the coyotes?
Where are they?
Put a light on them, shine them up.
And then who are you doing it with? Yeah. How are you identifying it, and who are you doing it with? And then what are you doing to kill them and replace them? And so these are for you to answer. That's not part of it.
No, that's a journey. That's a journey.
It's not overnight.
That is not like that's not a one-time encounter, is it, Dr. Matt? It's something that you have to revisit. Because just as soon as you kill these, you'll find more.
Sure.
And that's a journey. It's not an episodic thing. Yeah, it's ongoing.
So I hope you enjoyed that. It's meant so much to me for so many years, shining the light on my weaknesses and limiting beliefs so that I can eliminate them and step further into who I'm supposed to be, and what he said there, who God sees me as. If that resonates with you, drop something in the comments. Let Josh know that you enjoyed it. But that is one of my foundational stories, and this guy told it to me 5-6 years ago. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed the Griswold method. Subscribe, click all the things that you're supposed to do. I appreciate you.